shockingly good or shockingly bad? Hey guys, what's up? It's Katie and I'm back with another Marvel Contest of Champions video. And recently I got Black Widow Deadly Origins from the CCP, so thanks Kabam. Now she will be removed from my account after this video, so again, I want to thank Kabam for the opportunity to test her, and I will give you my thoughts on her, you know, where she shines, where she fails, and where I think Kabam really missed some opportunities to her. So first thing I want to do is add a disclaimer that I really only got to play with her for 24 hours because I was grinding all weekend. Now, normally we get a few days to play around with these new tunes, but I had to do a failed Aegon grind instead. So with that being said, please check out other videos from Karate Mike, Legacy, BG, and some other content creators before making a full opinion on her. Now, I do have a wild conspiracy theory that pertains to her, but I will float that at the end of this video, so make sure you stay tuned for that. So to start off with, she has a different playstyle from other champs. You are quote-unquote rewarded by playing at a higher skill level, and I will get into that in more of a bit. So basically you get the most out of her when you intercept opponents, evade specials, punish heavies, that sort of thing. If you are a parry 5-hit combo kind of player, then you will find her very unuseful. Okay, now she does have a defensive ability accuracy, but I find it very underwhelming, and here is why. And so this is with her Widow's Insight. So you activate Widow's Insight up to 50 stacks when you evade attacks, intercept, etc. Then you go into a 7-hit combo. While the Widow's Insight is active, you pretty much get shot guarantees on your lights, and you get a 70% reduction on defensive abilities on mediums. But this is only when you are hitting them with the medium, whereas OG Black Widow at max sig has a 70% reduction at all times, and that jumps up to 85% against science. Now, I think Kabam could have designed her to have, you know, defensive ability accuracy reduction anytime Widow's Insight is active. There is really no difference between 1 and 50 stacks of Widow's Insight, except after you launch your special 3. Okay, so here's the special 3. So there is no way to you know, boost her damage. So if we look at her special 3, inflict a Sabotage Debuff, reducing defensive ability accuracy by 20% for 16 seconds, dealing X direct damage when the opponent's defensive abilities fail to trigger. For every 5 stacks of Widow Insight gained since last activating the special attack, create a passive cruelty increase in crit damage rating by X for 30 seconds. Widow's Insight is reset to 0 after launching this special attack. So you do get that nice little precision buff when you end a combo with Widow's Insight active, but it is just kind of meh in my opinion. Now, she does also have a 7-hit combo, which Stealthy does too, but unlike Stealthy, it feels pretty clunky to me. It doesn't feel smooth. I really like her animations though, and her look, but her playstyle just kind of feels off to me. But that's really just a personal opinion. Plus, I'm not sure why Kabam are making champs with these higher hit combos when their combo meter has nothing to do with their abilities. I mean, I guess maybe you get more chances to play shock, but other than that, it really doesn't seem necessary. So she would be good for things like preventing things rock stacks or Korg's damage, but these guys are shock immune, so using her here is kind of useless. Which brings me to my next point. She does about 50% of her damage through shock. So if you can't shock an opponent, then really she's benched. I know that one shock debuff in the Uncollected event quest was deadly, but in all actuality, without that boosted up node, I feel her shock damage is okay at best. I was really hoping that she was going to be to shock as Nick Fury is to bleed or Longshot is to incinerate. I think Kabam should have given her some like OP shock damage when playing her correctly. Like, think about it. Even Nick is okay against bleed immune, excuse me, especially when he is dead. And that brings me to my next point. To get the most out of her, you need to play her at a high skill level, which is fine, but the payoff is honestly not that great. I really do appreciate what Kabam was trying to do here, and that is to introduce a new playstyle, but the payoff for learning a different way to play a champ has to have OP damage or utility like Mastering Ghost or Quake. Here, I feel like even if you play her perfectly and are an intercepting and backdrafting god, you get slightly above average damage output. Of course, we got her at a rank 3, so maybe at a rank 5, she could be better. I think really if Kabam wanted to reward a more skilled playstyle, then they should have given her a massive shock on the first hit of an intercept, you know, with like a guaranteed crit if you like backdraft intercept or something along those lines. If she got a Nick Fury like level burst of damage for intercepting, then her shock would go through the roof, in my opinion. Now, her specials. Let's kind of talk a little bit about her specials. Using the special 2 is the best for damage, right? You get a burst of shock damage and defensive ability reduction if the Widow's Insight is active. One thing I want to mention here is you always want the Widow's Insight buff to be active when using specials. All right, now the special 3 reduces ability accuracy also and places a Sabotage Debuff. So let's talk about the Sabotage Debuff because this is another mechanic of Black Widow that I feel is really not very useful. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Sabotage. So the Sabotage Debuff, you inflict a Sabotage Debuff reducing defensive ability accuracy by 20% for 16 seconds and dealing X direct damage when the opponent's defensive abilities fail to trigger. So with this debuff up, it basically reduces ability accuracy by 20% on your medium and special 2 attacks. This will increase to 90% if Widow's Insight is active. Now, that's a lot of conditions that need to be met. Too many, really, in my opinion. Also, this debuff deals a pitiful burst of damage if the opponent tries to trigger a defensive ability while they have this buff. At rank 3, it's 26. And what's the point of that? Really, nothing. I was hoping that this was gonna be like a domino crit failure situation, and it's not. And that makes me kind of a little bit sad. All right, so now let's talk about her special 1. So her special 1 inflicts shock. So it does deal some shock damage and gives her 1 evade charge for 6 seconds. If she uses it, then she will auto evade, do a burst of damage, and place the Sabotage Debuff. I'm sure this mechanic nailed a few people in the uncollected event quest, but using it offensively can be pretty risky. So first off, if you're blocking, it won't trigger and can only be used against basic attacks. So if your opponent has at least 1 bar of power, then you don't want to just be like standing there wide open because you could, you know, get punched in the face with a special, right? Right. So if this ability though would trigger against any attack, then I think it would be a lot more useful for things like evading unblockable specials. Another missed opportunity, I feel. Okay, now let's talk about her signature ability because it revolves around her Sabotage Debuff. All right, so her SIG ability increases the potency of Sabotage debuffs, increasing direct damage done when abilities fail to trigger. Increase the duration of Sabotage debuffs, and landing hits while Widow's Insight is active pauses Sabotage debuffs for 0.5 seconds. Since I feel her Sabotage debuff is sort of useless, I kind of feel like her SIG ability is also sort of useless. There is no real way to keep the debuff up 100% of the time. Doing the evade trick from her special 1 to get the debuff up for 6 seconds and then the special 3 for 16 seconds. I mean, at max SIG, you get an 80% duration, but even then, keeping it 100% seems impossible. So let's talk about her synergies. Her synergy with Red Guardian is okay if you find the evade charge useful. I think it really depends on how well Red Guardian is and whether or not you're going to use this synergy with him or not. Her synergy with Taskmaster is nice where she gains 2% of a bar of power with her Widow's Insight active. Now her synergy with Hawkeye and Ronin is interesting where it reduces the potency of bleed defects by 10% and an additional 10% if either Ronin or Hawkeye is dead. But I mean, who wants to kill off Ronin? Not me. Now the synergy with Hulk and Gulk give her 3% power gain, and her synergy with Elektra, Psylocke, and Gamora give her plus 115 crit rating. So where do I think she would be useful? Well, when I first read her abilities, I thought she would be perfect for the Thunderstruck node. And turns out she is. I took her into Act 6.3 and she did great against this node. And I absolutely hated this node in 6.3. Now, I'm not sure if Thunderstruck is anywhere else, maybe map 7. I really can't remember where else it is. Now, someone had mentioned diss track, and I think she would be good for this also because you can pretty much keep the shock stacks up the entire fight. But then again, there are also other champs that can stack debuffs, but at a rank 5, maybe Black Widow can probably tear up this node. She is also definitely a good counter to Safeguard, The shocks will bypass the 1% damage cap, and also going up against nodes with high armor or physical resistance, she can be useful for sure. So what are some pros and cons? Well, let's take a look at the pros first, right? She gives shock damage pretty much the entire fight. She deals energy damage, so she's good for, you know, physical resistance nodes. She's good for Safeguard, Thunderstruck, and Diss Track. So what are her cons? Well, she feels clunky to me, and she fails against shock immune or high energy resistance champs. She has a high risk, low reward playstyle. In my opinion, she's not suicide friendly. I feel like her evade mechanic and sabotage debuffs aren't really useful, and really she has kind of uninteresting synergies with maybe 1 or 2 that are useful. So with that being said, how would I rate her? Well, unfortunately, I give Black Widow Deadly Origin 4 out of 10 candies. At this point in time, if I had to choose between Black Widow Deadly Origin and OG Black Widow, I would choose OG Black Widow hands down. I think that Black Widow Deadly Origin kind of falls in the middle of the skill pack. But like I said, take everything I said with a grain of salt, really, because I didn't get that much time to test her. And of course, there could be encounters and matchups that she is best suited for that I'm just not seeing. One thing that Karate Mike said that I want to point out while we were discussing her was that she felt unfinished. And I think that word sums her up perfectly. So now get your tinfoil hats on, boys and girls, because I mentioned earlier about a conspiracy and I'm about to lay it out for you with absolutely no evidence to back it up, but that's what makes it a great conspiracy theory, right? Right. Okay, so the Black Widow movie has been delayed due to COVID-19. Now, I'm curious if they had to put her through a rework or something along those lines so she wouldn't spoil something in the movie. Now, Kabam works very closely with Marvel in regards to these champions, and Marvel has to approve everything with these champions, from their bio to their abilities to their look. So with her feeling kind of unfinished, I'm wondering if there were some last minute changes to her with the movie being delayed. I could be wrong, but it's just a feeling that I have, since I feel like she's not the champ that she was meant to be. And that's just a personal opinion of mine. Call it a candy note, if you will. But anyways, guys, that's all that I got for my initial thoughts on Black Widow Deadly Origin. But what do you think about her? Do you think she seems underwhelming or unfinished? Do you think she could potentially be better for some endgame content? What do you think about her evade mechanic and the sabotage debuff? Let me know in the comments below and let's discuss. As always, guys, thanks so much for watching. If you guys liked what you saw and you want to see more, please remember to like and subscribe, follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and hit me up in the Discord chat. Thanks, guys. Bye.